welcome to week 5. Right now we're going to be entering a phase where we will be slowing down and doing a little bit of deeper work. And since we're going to be doing some deeper work, I want you to know ahead of time that it may at times feel uncomfortable, a little weird, and sometimes even confusing. But as your leaders are working with you, I really strongly encourage you, just stick with it, because at the end you will begin to see the rewards of the process. So what is this process? Well, we're going to be working on integrating our thoughts, our emotions, and our values, and then inviting the Holy Spirit to integrate us. So I'm using this word integrate or integration a lot. So what does that mean anyway? Well, it actually means oneness or wholeness. When you think of the word integra or integrity, we think of oneness, wholeness. And so what we're going to be doing is taking unresolved areas in our life and processing them in a healthy way so that our thoughts, our emotions, and our values are integrated or become whole. What do I mean by that? Well, when we're not whole, it's when our thoughts, our values, our emotions aren't in alignment with each other. It's kind of like that feeling when you feel just a little bit off and you think, what I'm thinking or what I value isn't what I'm actually doing all of the time. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sitting in the tension that creates, because when we're off, it creates tension. And we're going to actually invite the Holy Spirit to be with us and sit with us in that tension. We're going to invite him to work through those parts, through the critic that you guys have talked about already. We're also going to be inviting him into our vulnerable parts, and we're going to be asking him to bathe us with his truth and his mind so that we can take those parts of us that are unhealthy and ask him through the truth of his word to help us become one or whole. Now, I find it helpful to think of it in terms of a particular model that I like to use from something called internal family systems. So think about it this way. We were created in the beginning as completely whole and perfect, but because of sin, remember we talked about the sin of the world, that we just live in a fallen world, and then there's also things that we do and things that others have done to us. Now, because of this, we experience pain and trial. And therefore, we are broken and everything doesn't fit together. I think of the verse from Romans in Romans 8:22 and 23 that says that the creation groans as it waits, and that we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption as sons and daughters. But for right now, we're still working to unite these parts of us. So when we think about this model that I mentioned, we may think of ourselves as having different parts or personalities based on certain core beliefs that we have. As we think about speaking the truth to these different parts, we can begin to integrate them and find wholeness. So, for example, let's start with the critic. When we think about the critic, that part of us often believes untruths. For example, maybe I'm not enough or I'm not worthy. But we'll find out in just a moment that the critic actually has a reason for thinking that. Usually the critic is somewhat of maybe a slave driver or something that's trying to actually protect a weaker part of us. That weaker part, which isn't always as weak as we think it is, but we call that part the vulnerable part. And that's the part that our critic is usually trying to protect. So the vulnerable part of us usually is, when you think of yourself maybe as a 5th or 6th grade girl, it's that part of you that's vulnerable, that's also very real. And so we're going to be exploring that part. And as we ask the Holy Spirit to come in and speak truth to both of those parts, we're going to see how that brings integration.